Hey guys, welcome to my Endsinger EX guide. We'll be going through all the mechanics, discussing the trial, and breaking down how to clear the fight, hopefully helping you understand any mechanics you're stuck on, or get through any, and get yourselves the clear and start farming those mounts. So, this fight, I would say overall, mechanically not too complex, but it's very fast-paced and very punishing with the outgoing damage, so making sure that you're on top of your mitigation planning and your healing is important. First mechanic we see here is Elegia Unforgotten, where two moons collide. There are two variants to the moons which collide. There are blue moons, as you see here. When they collide, they will knock you back from the collision. There are also orange moons, as you now see here. When these collide, you want to be away from the collision. At the same time, while these moons are colliding, you'll see a mirror head of the boss in the middle of the arena. This will cleave half the arena in front of it. So when avoiding the moons, or getting hit by the knockback, you want to make sure that you are also avoiding the head's cleave to not get hit by that too. A neat little trick with the moons, or the planets colliding, is that they will always collide on static positions. So as with the very first mechanic, when you see that the two blue moons collide, you now know that blue moons will always be on those marker pairs. So you see we use the 1, 2, 3, and 4 markers. You'll now always be able to rely on 2 and 4 in this instance being for the blue moons, and 1 and 3 being from the orange moons. This is important to remember for later mechanics, as this will come up again. Once you've shown the introductory planet colliding mechanic, you will then get Grip of Despair. In this mechanic, 8 towers will spawn around the arena, and tanks and healers will be tethered to DPS. The way we resolve this is we all stack together on the A marker in the middle of the arena. When the cast bar ends, tanks and healers go left, DPS go right. Once your chain is broken, go into pre-assigned tower positions. The way we assign this is we put tanks at the front on the left, with melee DPS at the front on the right, and then healers at the back left 2, and range DPS at the back right 2 towers. As the towers go off, the boss will cleave either the sides or the center of the arena. You can tell which part of the arena she's going to cleave based on whether her eyes are glowing or her mouth is glowing. If her eyes are glowing, she's cleaving the side. If her mouth is glowing, she's cleaving the middle. The way to do this and to resolve this is in the tower, you're safe to stand on either side, dependent on which part of the arena she's cleaving. So as you see here, she's cleaving sides. So I move to the center of the tower, the edge of the tower near the center of the arena, and all the towers resolve. Should anyone miss a tower, you'll get a stack of Vuln up for every tower missed. Following this, T-Loss is just a raid wide. Just throw a 10% mitigation on it, you'll be fine. And then following this is Tank Busters. The Tank Busters are AoE Tank Busters that target the 2 highest threat targets. So both tanks, make sure you have your stance on. Mitigate this heavily. There's really not a lot else that needs mitigation as a tank other than the Busters. So just throw your cooldowns at it. Make sure you stay away from the party and make sure you manage threat correctly. That's the introductory set of the mechanics done. Now we get another Elegia Unforgotten. Once again, you see we have orange planets. So we move away from 1 over to 3, and we avoid the cleave from the head. After this, we now get Eronia. This gives 2 stacks. Make sure that you have pre-assigned stack groups, stack together and resolve those. Once you've resolved the stacks, you'll now be introduced to the Fatalism Mechanic. For this mechanic, the boss will take the pre-assigned explosions from the planets and repeat them. One of them will move slowly, one of them will move quickly. As you see here, the quick one was on 1, so we move away from 1. And then as soon as that resolves, we have to move straight away to the other side of the arena to avoid the one on 3. This is then followed, once again, by Elenkos, which will cleave either side or center. Here we got side, so we all group in the center. Fatalism will repeat a few times during this fight, so make sure, as I mentioned earlier, you remember where the planets are. Oranges in this case on odd numbers, blues on evens, and be prepared to deal with them. Now, this mechanic here, Twinsong, is the next major mechanic in the fight. When this mechanic begins, you'll see that 5 heads spawn around the arena. 1 on each of the markers and 1 in the center. The one in the center, much like the one we've seen before, will cleave half the arena in front of it. The other 4 will do alternating donut AoEs. So as you can see here, number 2 and off-screen number 4 will have donuts, while number 1 and number 3 are just full AoEs. So we start by finding the half of the arena the mouth is not cleaving, which is the north half. and then we go to the safe zone. The AoEs and the cleaves will rotate 3 times, so we start on 2, we move clockwise, movement will always be clockwise here, to number 3, and then we move clockwise once more to number 4. Pretty simple movement pattern to start it off and introduce the mechanic, but here is where things will get slightly more complex. Once you have resolved the 3 stages of movement from the initial safe zone, the boss will target each of their heads with a rewind mechanic known as Theological Fatalism. The way this works is that for each ring that a head is marked with, that head will perform one of the 3 prior patterns, dependent on the number of rings around the head. Each head gets a unique number of rings, so these will need to be processed individually. For example, a head with 1 ring will perform the pattern immediately prior. 2 rings will have the head perform the second pattern in the mechanic again, while a head with 3 rings will perform the third mechanic prior. Or to think of it another way, 3 rings will be the first pattern in the mechanic. The things to look out for then in processing the mechanic are the center head first, and discerning which half of the room it will cleave dependent on how many steps back it goes. Then in the safe half of the room, determining which of the 2 remaining heads will be performing the pattern that provides the donut AoE and a safe zone. There is only one correct solution for this mechanic, as only one of the heads on the safe half of the arena will do a donut AoE. If you're unsure, group movement can be relied upon here provided one person knows where to go, though I do recommend learning the full function of the ring system for yourself, as this will show up again later on in the fight. So if we watch in action here, we see that 4 is safe, we move over to 4, all the AoEs go off repeating their prior patterns as assigned by the rings, and then we spread into the 2 healer stacks with an Ellen cost at the same time. Here the boss cleaved middle. I was not watching for it, but I got away with that one because I just followed the party. And then following all of that are 2 tank busters. So tanks, make sure you mitigate, move away from the party after the stacks, and you're all good. Following that mechanic, we then get Despair Unforgotten. This one is a pretty simple in-out mechanic that just requires full group coordination. So the way this mechanic is assigned is there are 3 configurations. One set, as you see here, gives flares to all the DPS, and then for the tanks and healers, 3 will get a donut marker, and 1 gets a stack. The simple resolution to this is to pre-assign clock spot positions to everyone before the encounter begins. The way we do it is we put main tank north, off tank east, both of the melees on the northern intercardinals, the melee DPS, so that they can maintain uptime, healers south and west, and the ranged DPS on the southern intercardinals. That will spread everyone out. When you get a flare, you just go out to your intercardinal position on your clock spot and resolve the flare. If you have the stack or the donut, you stay in on the A marker. Again, these will always be assigned to either tanks and healers or DPS. You see, we all line up, it neatly resolves, and we all come back to the middle for healing. After this resolves, we'll then see another configuration where tanks and healers have been marked with flares, so we go out to our out positions. All the DPS are stacked in the middle for the stack and the donuts. After the second pattern, you will see that the boss does an Ellen cost its eyes, so we stay center here. We allow the Ellen cost to resolve. And then we will get the third part of Despair Unforgotten. Now for this one, this is the spread mechanic. Everyone gets a large circle AoE around themselves. We just have everyone go out and spread to clock positions here. This will resolve the circles neatly. There's even space in the middle for someone to stay there. And then once again we get Theological Fatalism. What happens here, much like the last mechanic, is an amount of rings are placed on targets, except this time they're placed onto players. What this will do is this will repeat the mechanic you had as many steps prior in the mechanic's order as the amount of rings you had. So you see, my first mechanic was in, and then I had double out. So my ring order is 1 ring is out, 2 rings are out, 3rd ring is in. You just record the order of your mechanics and then do them in reverse, dependent on the number of rings you have. So here I have 3 rings, so I'm going 3 steps back. So I had spread, out, in being my 3rd one. So I walk back in, group back up, and allow the mechanic to resolve. The groups and the spreads here aren't based on tanks and healers, it's purely based on your own order, so make sure that you remember what your order is and go to the correct place accordingly. After this mechanic resolves, we see Teleomania. This is a large heal check multi-hit raid wide. Throw plenty of mitigation cooldowns and healing at this just to make sure everyone gets through it alive. At the end it drops a nasty bleed as well, so just throw a bunch of healing at it and make sure you make it through. Now that that's been resolved, we deal with Endsongs of Foray. This is another new mechanic. In this instance, 6 copies of the Endsinger's head will appear around the arena. The Endsinger will then sing, letting out 4 rings. When a ring hits a head copy, it will cause it to explode in a circle AoE. So you find the ones that aren't being hit by rings, you go to them and there is a safe zone. The rings then fire out again. You try and find the ones that aren't getting hit. As you see here, I do it completely wrong, but I tank privilege my way through it. And then for a third time, the rings move, find the safe zone, get to the safe zone, avoid the circles, and then avoid the Ellen cost cleave. Again, cleaving middle here, we move to sides, perfectly safe. And that's that mechanic, just 3 steps of avoiding rings as they travel to the heads. When they hit them, you'll get the explosion. Now you get T-Loss, this is another raid wide. And following up T-Loss is the tank busters. So again, just kitchen sink, throw your mitt at it, and you'll be absolutely fine. There's no new mechanics to come yet. There's now just variations and iterations on existing mechanics that you're yet to see, but I will run over the big mechanic, or the big iteration on the Allegia mechanic that you're about to see now, because this one's probably one of the nastier ones, and at least in PF groups that I ran on the first couple days, we found that this was the one that usually caught a lot of people out. So you see here, we get knockback from 4, dodging the cleave of the head, into stack groups, and now we get a 4-step Allegia pattern. So Fatalism begins, we have reds first, so we're moving away. We'll move away from the fast one, then the slow one, and then this will be followed by the 2 knockback moons. So you see we move away from 1 for the fast orange, then we move away from 3 for the slow orange, then look around the arena, find the fast blue. After the orange goes off, we move to 2 for the fast blue, and we move to 4 for the slow blue. And when the last knockback resolves, you then need to run to your towers. Everyone gets in their pre-assigned towers, avoiding the Ellen cost cleave, in this instance on the sides. As you see here, we do take the 1 Vuln stack from having someone missing for a tower, but very survivable. Following this though, there is a Teleomania, so make sure that everyone's nice and topped up after the mechanic ends. Throw out your healing cooldowns, your mitigation cooldowns, keep everyone alive, and you get through it. After this, you will see repeats of mechanics you've already seen before, just resolve them in the same way, do plenty of damage, make sure you don't die, and beat the enraged chair. And that's it, that's the entire fight. That is the Endsinger's Aria, the Minstrel's Ballad, the new EX trial that came out with patch 6.1. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video, I hope you found it helpful. If you've got any questions or any feedback, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments down below. Thank you for your time, thank you for watching, I wish you good luck with clearing the fight and getting some loot, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, thank you.